Hello, and welcome to a gameplay patch update, 7.19c. My name's Kevin, and I'm here with my dog Tango. Okay. Wait. This is a dehydrated chicken. She's a big fan. Okay. Anyways, let's go over the patch. It is not super long. It's got some changes. I've heard rumors. I basically was playing pubs when the patch came out last night, but I wasn't streaming. And then, so I saw a couple of the changes. But generally, I've heard that it's mostly just nerfs to top heroes in the current meta, which kind of makes sense. People were a little upset with the previous patch. They kind of felt like the meta was maybe a little bit still too defined, but until qualifiers are over, basically they can't really shake up the meta in a huge way. So I'm not too surprised to see another semi-small patch, basically. Now let's look at the patch. Blade Mail cooldown increased from 20 to 25. Bonus armor reduced from 6 to 5. Blade Mail is very stat. I gotta do mouse with left hand and pet the dog with right hand. Very value stat item. Basically, you get a lot of bonus stats, but you get a little bit less armor now. Blade Mail was very useful on heroes like Wraith King. It was pretty good on Spectre as well. There's just a couple of heroes where Blade Mail was pretty solid. You could argue it's really good on like Axe and Legion Commander as well, so they're getting slight nerfs here. A little bit unfortunate for them because they're not really played that often. But they also don't always buy Blade Mail either, so it's probably fine. But I'm slightly surprised about this, I guess, but I don't think it's unreasonable for the item to get nerfed. And it is a very difficult item to use at the right time, kind of. And a lot of heroes, it doesn't work for them, but the item's still fine. Klink's base strength reduced by 2, so that's 36 less HP. Searing Arrow's mana cost increased from 10 to 12, so he's going to have more mana problems now. You can actually get by without too much mana regen on the hero. I think buying like a Soul Ring is a mistake. I don't like doing that. I don't think it's needed anymore. You can just kind of cover with other mana regen items usually. I think is a better way to deal with Klink's mana pool. Like Aquila plus, I don't know, Raindrops and a Clarity Potion here or there. I think is fine. He's gotten some talent nerfs, some late game ones actually. So the health regen talent got nerfed down to 16. That was the more popular one, and the higher win rate one, I believe. And the 25 talent strafe duration got reduced. I think that was needed, actually. The strafe talent was super, super good, in my understanding. Much higher win rate. I was pretty sure of this when I first played Klink's. Yeah, look at the win rates of all these. It's a pretty huge discrepancy here. I think this one's fine. Nobody really ever bothers with the evasion, which is probably all right. Maybe there's some cases where it'd be worth getting, but it's probably so rare. Health regen is just good because it keeps you on the map constantly as long as you have a little bit of mana regen. Attack range is good too, but in a lot of cases the health regen is just better, I guess, especially against a lot of nukes or something. Makes you more of a long-term fighter. I know I already gave you some chicken, now you want some more. Strafe duration was kind of broken in the right circumstances. Like if you can last pick Klink's, he's really effective just because you can projectile dodge a lot of things like Venge Stun, Wraithkin Stun, etc. So that puts it up to a duration. It used to be, 7.5 seconds, which is kind of crazy, and no ranged attacks either. And I found it a little bullshit, so I think it being reduced a little bit is more than fair, personally. That'll bring that a little bit more into balance, I suppose. Crystal Maiden Arcane Aura for allies, it's been reduced a little bit. This is a smaller nerf. It's 0.1 across the board, basically. So it's impactful for sure, but it's not like the biggest nerf ever. The hero herself is still going to be playable in what she does, but she won't necessarily pump out mana as much. Just a little nerf here. But some teams do pick Crystal Maiden for the benefit of just harassing in other lanes a lot more effectively. So I think that's not too surprising. Klink's was very picked at TI, by the way. Crystal Maiden was picked a pretty good amount, but she was not the most picked hero. Dark Willow was very picked at TI, but towards the end I think she kind of got ignored. Bramble's total damage reduced. It only does 120.85 per Bramble at level 1. Oh, actually it's like really nerfed across the board. This is a pretty big nerf. When I realized the other day that the one Bramble did 140 damage, that was crazy to me. That's a huge amount of damage for a level 1 skill, especially because you could land multiple Brambles in one gank on the same hero. 140 is kind of crazy. It still does a lot early, but it doesn't scale nearly as high. It only gets 25 per level, so damage-wise, that skill does not scale well at all anymore. Used to get 40 per level, now it's getting 25. So definitely a pretty big nerf to Bramble damage. But I think it's going to probably matter the most in like mid game fights, like between basically the point between like what 10 and it's more like 7 and 10 or something like that, somewhere in there. You're going to notice a lot of damage liking. Shadow Realm cooldown has been increased by 2 seconds at all levels, make it a little bit longer cooldown in the late game. That's where it's going to matter the most, is right here, this 14. So it'll just make the hero a little bit easier to kill and longer fights that go longer than 12 seconds. Because basically before, if you activate Shadow Realm, you have 5 seconds where you're not being attacked. And then there's a 7-second cooldown where you can be attacked. And then you would use it again. So now it's a 9-second cooldown. So there's a bigger window after the first usage where you can kill her, which is probably fair. Oh, thanks for all the gifted subs. I appreciate it. Thanks, man. I think there are gifted subs only $1 this month. $1 this month. I can't remember. I don't know if I can expand this. Is the problem? Not on a website. Sorry. Otherwise, I would expand it so you could read it better. Curse Crown stun duration reduced. I wonder if there's a way I can make it. It'd be real messy. The stun duration is reduced at all levels by 0.25 seconds, so just a little bit weaker as an AoE stun. 1.75 seconds at level 1, so quite a bit worse. And Bedlam damage is nerfed again in the mid and late game. 10 less damage when leveling it up. So basically just across the board, just really small. I think maybe the most extreme one is perhaps Bramble Maze, but all of them are like pretty light nerfs to the hero. Oh, thanks for the cheers. I don't know why the icon isn't working. Can't tell you. Earthshaker Root now disables his Scepter Blade. Okay, I saw some complaints about this. So you got Root. You can still use Enchant Totem to run away. More than fair. Enchantress Strength rescaled from 19 plus 1.3 to 16 plus 1.5. So less starting HP, but she gains it back slowly. So if we look at how long that will take to gain back the 3 Strength, we can just divide 3 by 0.2. Tango is going in to her butt right now. It's going crazy. Level 15, basically. So you'd have to hit level 16 for you to have the same health as before. So this is, I think, a good solution because they reduced her movement speed again. It's pretty crazy, actually. She used to be 340 movement speed, I believe, level 1. And now she's 320. It's a huge difference. Base int reduced by 2 as well. It doesn't say that her base damage remains the same, so I assume that means her base damage has been reduced also. This is pretty big nerfs, in my opinion. So we're already talking about, God, I'm bad at math. 54 less HP, is that right? Let me just make this safe. Yeah, 54 less HP at level 1, which is a lot. And then she has 5 less movement speed, which is pretty significant. And she has 2 less damage. And she has 44 less mana. Like, that is a huge nerf. I know that pro players were still complaining about her a lot, though. Like, after the last patch, I think they didn't nerf her that much, is what they had said. So let's look at her base info. So she has 488 base HP, which is pretty low. She still does, about 52 damage. She has 330 mana, which is still pretty good, actually. Her int being lowered is... It's going to be okay. Her mana pool being lowered is still decent. With that said, that's basically 2 Nature's Attendants, and then you're out of mana. Maybe I need to put a lid on these treats so you don't smell them in wine. So she's a little bit weaker, for sure. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. All right, Grimstroke. I got spoiled on these already, so you're not going to be able to see an authentic reaction from me, unfortunately. But somebody was playing Grimstroke last night when I was pubbing. So Inkswell no longer makes the target immune to attacks, so they remove that part. It no longer silences and disarms the target. So this kind of reminds me a lot of Oracle, I think. And they've also, the Soulbind duration, they increased the duration of his ulti by 2 seconds at all levels, which I think is maybe okay. I'm not sure yet. So let's talk about Inkswell first. When they first had Oracle come out, his second skill, Fate's Edict, I can't remember exactly what it did. I think it was like it made you immune to, I don't remember exactly how it worked. Did it not use to disarm? Not disarmed? Oh, you mean this. I don't remember how it works exactly. So the not disarm part is what people are complaining about basically. So the issue with Inkswell is that it's a really good trading ability. You basically turn it on and you run up to your opponents, and at some point they take a bunch of damage, and then you get stunned. The fact that it made you immune to attacks was kind of useful for a couple situations, for like saving allies in kind of late game situations. You could like Inkswell yourself and then teleport away. There was good things about it defensively, but it wasn't really the point of the ability. The point of the ability was mostly offensive. And the problem is that using an ability on an ally that's offensive like this was kind of hard because, first of all, they don't always see it right away. And number two, if you're disarming them and silencing them, in a lot of cases, you're ruining the team fight because they're planning to do something in that moment. They don't necessarily notice in a crazy team fight. So now it's like just really straightforward what it does now. It's literally a movement speed buff and a prep for a big stun and big damage nuke. So pretty much always as a Grimstroke, you should just cast this on your melee carry that get into the fight. You should just cast it on them because no matter what happens, you're going to do a bunch of damage with it. Because you don't really need, like, it's kind of dangerous to run in yourself with Inkswell on. And now it's just like easier to use offensively with allies, which is probably why people were complaining that he got buffed. Because it's just easier to use now. Bad players it's going to be easier for them to use this. Good players, it's going to be easier for them to use this. It also not silencing is kind of amazing as well because you basically can just cast this on. It has almost no downsides. It's literally going to give somebody movement speed and then they'll do a stunning explosion afterwards. It's just, the skill got real good, especially in a lot of dual lanes. You don't have to cast on your hero anymore, basically. You can just put it on any melee or whatever. So that's Inkswell. The other important thing that you're talking about that somebody mentioned is that it doesn't disarm the target anymore. This is kind of a big deal for the laning stage, pretty much, because normally in trading situations, you are attacking somebody, casting a spell, attacking somebody. If you can use this to do damage to set up your stun while attacking, it actually increases the damage that Grimstroke does in these dual lanes, without a doubt. Yes, you can be right-clicked back, and yes, your opponents you can like kill a Grimstroke if he's about to die and he Inkswells last second to save somebody, but they just completely remove the save aspect of it, more or less. But I would argue this is definitely, I would argue this made the hero better. It definitely makes the hero better in late game, which is good, I think, because the hero late game is pretty much bad outside of Soulbind or a Grimstroke that did a good job, like creating space and then scaling. So I think this kind of needed to happen to make the hero better for shitty players. Because I think at super high levels, Grimstroke is really strong. But I think at really low levels, Grimstroke is not a very good hero. It's like this: if you pick heroes that have Soulbind combos, great hero. But if you're losing the laning stage, the hero does not transition well. And if you're losing the game, the hero is bad. And if you do not pressure, the hero is bad also. So I think I saw a Reddit thread showing how many times Slax has lost with Grimstroke. It's a lot. Like, he loses almost every Grimstroke game. And he's okay at using the skills, but I think the reason is because he's not super good at lane pressure. You have to do a lot of attacking, kind of. And then you have to transition into some really good, like, ganks, lane pressure, snowballing kind of thing. Like, you have to snowball the tempo with your really strong skills. That way you can have some gold advantage that makes your hero just better. But now that Inkswell is just fire and forget on any melee hero, like Grimstroke Axe is going to be an obvious pairing. He blink calls some guy, you drop Inkswell, or he's about to blink call, you just cast Inkswell on him, he blink calls. That's like a guaranteed, like, on two heroes, that's like a guaranteed 8 seconds of stun or 7 seconds of stun or something. It's actually kind of crazy. So, for really good players, this is still probably a benefit, really. Like, the fact that you don't silence your ally anymore to set this up is just, like, so strong. Even the lack of disarm as well. It's just so good. It is dispellable, I guess. So that's one thing that players could try to do to beat it, is dispel it. But Not everybody has solutions against it, is the thing. You could say Oracle does, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if his win rate changes. In fact, let me go look really quick. I'm curious what it's like in game. What his win rate is. So his win rate's pretty good in high level games, 48%. But I imagine it goes down as MMR, as skill level goes down, which is not surprising to me. Because I mean, he's a little hard to execute, I guess, is part of it. But like late game, he takes a lot of execution to be good. So I'm not surprised to see his win rate go down. Kind of interesting to see these at the same win rate. Not too surprising to see movement speed at higher win rate when when almost everybody gets GPM. 2-hit skill Phantasm, it's not surprising either. And then this one being about the same, I think is fair. Okay. And back to the patch. So, kind of interesting. I think that this will be better for Dota overall, but he'll probably need more nerfs after this. And I think it's probably fine they increase the soul. These are like buffs that basically kind of needed to happen in my opinion, because the hero is just a little bit too weird and hard to play. And they're just going to have to nerf him in other ways later to make up for it. Like, I don't know, reducing Inkswell stun duration or damage or something, you know? I think they're going to have to do that. Phantom Lancer wasn't extremely played at TI, but he was played. Nerfing his agility game by a little bit is pretty significant. It's going to do a little bit less damage over the course of the game. Attack slower, less armor. All that helps. Phoenix nerfed again. Fire Spirit's DPS down to 40 now. Used to be, what, like 70 damage or something crazy? 60 damage? I don't remember what it was at. It was a lot, though. But that makes mid-game Phoenix a little bit worse. Mid to late game. Silencer nerf 2. Last word damage rescaled, so it does less at level 1. Used to do 150 with 1 skill point, which is kind of crazy. It's really high for a single skill, even though the cooldown's long. Arcane Curse mana cost goes up to 125. That was pretty fair, just because you could cast it on like 2 heroes pretty easily. I think they just nerfed it already. In the last patch, they went from 75 to 105, which is crazy. 75 to 105, and they again nerfed it. Now it's up to 125. So 2 small patches ago, 75 mana, it's now 125. That is a massive, massive increase. Like 66% mana cost increase in like a month to Arcane Curse. And the mana cost for Global Silence has also gone up. So the hero's not going to be as item independent, perhaps. I mean, it's still Arcane Curse will still be the same late game, but laning wise, like you can't just spam Arcane Curse like you could before. You have to use it more selectively. Spectre Desolate Radius increase. This means how far away you have to be. This is double nerfed actually, same thing. So the radius, basically how far away you can be from an ally where you don't take desolate damage. Now it's 500 units in all directions from your hero, which is huge. 500 units is a lot. So that means much less likely actually that you take desolate damage compared to before. This used to be 325 and now it's 500, just increased by like more than a Dragonlance of range. It's crazy. Dispersion level 1 is nerfed down to 7%. Still ends up being the same thing. You have 5 per level. Basically makes 2 points of dispersion really value, I'd argue, because you get 7 points for the first one, then you get 5 for the second. But it's definitely worse than it was before. A lot of Spectres were going like at TI, they were going like 404, just because they knew like they just got to farm items and stay alive. That them having Desolate wasn't going to make that big of a difference generally. Is why they generally just max dispersion. And there was just a lot of really solid gank heroes. So I was kind of curious to see that change, or a playstyle adjustment, but it makes sense that they'd have to nerf dispersion. The fact they nerfed it twice, we'll see that in a moment. Haunt mana cost increased in late game, so just a little bit more mana in the late game. It's fine. Just means that if you pressure Spectre and drain his mana, or if he fights a lot, he's not necessarily going to have haunt mana cost. Up later. Talents changed. So they took the stat talent, it was the +8 stats at 15, they put it to level 10. They removed the desolate damage one from there, and they actually put it up to 15. So basically, you could maybe argue the 4 stats at 10 is appropriate for the level, but 4 stats is really not much. 4 to all stats feels pretty bad. That's like 72 HP or something, really, really tiny. The other talent was health regen, which basically everybody would get in the past. But now it's a harder choice. The Spectre we were just looking at in that previous game did go for +4 all stats, not the health regen, which is a little bit weird considering you didn't buy any HP regen items. So you can't basically have regen at 10, +8 stats at 15, then 500 health at 20. It's basically every Spectre could just get really tanky just by getting levels more or less, which is part of the benefit of like buying back and taking team fights. You just get really, really strong as you live, as you survive through fights. And the Desolate Damage talent has also just flat been nerfed in a lot of ways because it just simply is the same level, but now it's a 15 talent. So it's like they both kind of got a little nerfed, I would argue. I mean, you can get more tanky at level 10, I guess, with slightly more stats, some more mana pool and stuff, but it feels kind of bad. I don't think I would want to ever get +4 all stats. That feels really terrible to me. But maybe if I'm going a lot of agility items, it makes sense. Or maybe if I need more mana pool or something. If I'm going like the Spectral Dagger cooldown talent at 15, maybe I'd go all stats. That way I have more mana pool. That'd be kind of nice, I suppose. It's not much. It's like 48 more mana pool. Not a lot. And then the 25 talent got nerfed down to 6% dispersion. So at max level, we're talking 28 dispersion instead of 30. So almost the same super late game. Just the biggest difference is you don't get as many natural stats. And the level 15 talent is basically all damage. It's either a Spectral Dagger cooldown or more Desolate, which I think puts you up to like, so maximum like 65 Desolate damage. But because the radius is so big, this just feels kind of weird now. I don't know why this is so high. Maybe because like the only time people would get it is if they're going to win, basically. This has about the same win rate as the health. And these are about equal. Yeah, I'm not surprised that the health regen is so much higher win rate. There's not a lot of samples. This is like 1 day of games, basically. And this also might be bugged because this one might be like the Desolate damage. I don't know if it incorporates new data or old data or not. But my guess is that the health regen is better than 4 stats. I guess these are about equal, depending on what you like. I actually do like the Spectral Dagger cooldown one. I think if you have Spectral Dagger cooldown, then it's certainly an option to go the Dagger slow, depending on the game, which I think is exciting, perhaps. It's another way to play Spectre. Health is really strong on Spec, but I do like the Spectral Dagger, the Spec Dagger. It's going to jump me again. Storm Spirit. Static Remnant damage reduced by 20 at all levels. So just a Storm nerf. You know, just like a totally normal Storm nerf. It's going to make last hitting a little bit harder. It's going to make jungling worse by kind of a big amount. I mean, it's 20 less damage no matter what level you are to neutral creeps, which is, tripled or whatever, depending on how big the stack is, if there's a stack. So it's definitely going to slow Storms down, but Storm kind of has still been good. I don't know what his win rate has been like. He has been picked in pro games at TI. It wasn't like the biggest hero, but it certainly had a lot of good games. I think they need to remove this talent probably. No, literally nobody ever gets it. They actually never get it. I mean, hypothetically, you can use it to continue slowing people and maybe do damage with Overload, I guess. So you'd be better against BKB heroes, but nobody ever gets it just because the 500 distance auto remnant is so good in team fights and stuff. It kind of makes like mines and pushes and like there's just... I just can't think of a lot of opportunity or situations where Overload pierces immunity is better. Like unless somebody is like BKB running away from you or something, is like the only one I can think of. But it's just not great. Wow, this has like a massive. It's like completely one-sided to high level players. Kind of interesting. So that's Storm. Just getting another nerf. Rest in peace, Blitz. Ursa getting nerfed too, also a very popular core at TI. He kind of fell off a little bit at the end, but he was definitely dominant just because he guarantees like a lane win against melee cores if you pick him in the right position. Fury Swipe's damage is worse at level 1 now, so you need to get multiple levels for it to be comparable. Basically by the 3rd point, it's about the same. So just a little bit weaker early on, which I think is more than fair. This is also, you could argue, like base damage, because when you attack, you get the damage from the first swipe. So you could argue this is like 3 less damage. Makes it slightly harder to last hit early on. Earthshock damage has also been reduced. Actually, there's a lot of players that were going like 3-1-1. I noticed they're like getting a lot of Earthshock early, just because it's very spammable. It's pretty low mana cost. So now it's going to require, and the damage overall is lower, just 40 damage less overall, I guess. So a little bit harder to harass with. And they've also nerfed enrage damage multiplier. It's just rescaled, so it's a little bit weaker early on. So basically, level 1 Ursa is just weaker, period. And then, a little bit less damage, just weaker in the lane. Earthshock is worse as a new kind of farming ability, so this should reduce his farming speed, basically. So Ursa nerfs. Vengeful Spirit getting nerfed. Movement speed reduced by 5, and the projectile speed is reduced down to 900. This is getting pretty slow. I'm kind of sad about this personally, because this means that landing a magic missile is hard, but they did kind of overbuff Venge, and these are really not bad nerfs considering how that the hero is still kind of good. Like Wave of Terror does a stupid amount of damage at level 1, 60 damage. Magic Missile is 100 damage, 1.5 second stun. That all got buffed, probably overbuffed. And then now, she's still good. Certainly still good. Those nerfs are pretty small. We'd have to see. Oh yeah, I wanted to check what her base movement speed is now, 290. So she's definitely slow, but she does have really good agility gains. So over the course of the game, she'll get faster. And you're still going to want to get like Tranquil Boots anyways. So I don't think this is that big of a deal. It just makes you a little bit worse at laning in that you can't necessarily like guarantee kills yourself. You might have to like be a little bit more supporty, cover your allies, kind of a thing. I'm just going to check what the projectile speed of her stun is though. Let us see how... That is pretty slow. That is pretty slow, man. Extremely dodgeable if you're a pro player. I mean, from the normal cast range, it's different, but if you get an Aether Lens, it's terrible, though, I must say. Like, once in a while, Aether Lens kind of felt like a good thing on Venge, but now it doesn't look good at all. Like, the speed, the amount of distance that it has to gap close is kind of crazy. Although, I mean, you could do some... I guess the faster you... Doesn't seem like... You can't, like, lower it down or anything by the time you can cancel it. Oops. I'm trying to like cancel the backswing faster. I don't know, it's really slow now. It's basically going to make ganking as Venge a lot harder. Mortar looks really cool. It's kind of a big nerf. But if you want to play her as a ganking hero, she's going to be a little bit worse at locking down heroes. So if you do initiate something, like a lot of initiations will be like this. You're going to like Wave of Terror so they can't blink, you're going to swap, and then you're going to turn and stun. And if they have some kind of evasion, it's going to be easier for them to get out of it, basically. So solo ganking Venge is just moderately worse against heroes that are evasive, is the safe way to describe it. Which is probably kind of fair because, swap is already really effective against a lot of heroes. Swap is already very effective against a lot of heroes, and if her stun is also relatively reliable, then it kind of gives her coverage against so many good things. So it just means that she's going to be worse against heroes like Storm and Weavers and stuff like that, because they can probably outrun the stun or dodge it or whatever. Yeah, or you can do Mirana Arrow with swap. You're right about that. People did that at TI. A lot of good options like that, or have somebody else have a stun ready on you where you swap, for example. So there's options. Weaver getting nerfed though. Base int reduced by 2, so 24 less mana for him. That's a pretty big nerf, so he's not going to have as many Sakuchis early on in the laning stage. Swarm cooldown has been increased, so it's worse with fewer skill points, just much worse at level 1. So if you only have 1 point of Swarm, it's going to be a lot weaker than it is before. Time lapse has been nerfed at level 1 also, 70 seconds now for the first cooldown. And then, okay, they swapped the talents as well. This is probably not all bad for the hero, in my opinion. And like the mana break is still going to be 20 at 15, but now if you want to, you can get experience gain and you can get the mana break. Almost all players right now have been getting experience gain and skipping mana break. But now that it's 7 strength or the experience gain, they might argue that it's okay to go experience and then go mana break at 15. So 15 is basically damage now, right? 75 Sakuchi damage. So it'll go from like 150 to 225, which is pretty good. Or they can get the mana break, depending on what they want to do. If you get the Sakuchi damage, you can farm faster, you can push waves faster, which is kind of nice, but most people buy Maelstrom anyways right now. Probably they'll continue. 7 strength is not bad though. That is 7 times 18. So that's 126 HP. It's okay. I mean, it used to be 216. So 126 to 216. So kind of depends on the game, I guess. If they have solutions against you, the strength is probably better. But I think I would see myself going experience gain into mana break. I'd probably go experience gain in most games. I'd definitely prefer to get the experience gain because, you know, as you level up, the more levels you get more experience anyway. You get more strength anyways, right? Every time you level up, you get 1.8 strength. So you could argue that if we divide by 7 by 1.8, because most games don't go super late, you could argue that by 3.8 levels or 4 levels, by the time you hit level 14, basically, you have the same strength that you would have if you had gotten the 7 strength talent. So, and I think that's pretty valuable, because getting from 10 to 14 on Weaver anyways, I don't know if you guys can hear or not, but getting from 10 to 14 anyways is pretty important. Because then you get all of your swarms maxed out and your Geminates maxed out and all that stuff. So getting those extra levels I think is quite needed. But I mean, if there's a fast Orchid or something on the enemy team, then wait. Quit pulling me in. You really did mess up your nail, huh? Okay. Eat your little duck. Wait. Okay. Okay, so Weaver nerfs to Weaver. Wraith King, Wraithfire Blast stunned. Ooh, rescale. Ooh. That's a big nerf. 1.1 second stun. On a 14-second cooldown. That's huge. This is always stunned for 2 seconds. So you basically have to max Wraithfire Blast now. Which most people do anyways, but getting extra points may be worth it. The base damage is also not scaling anymore, but the damage per second is also reduced. So basically this just doesn't... Okay, well, it does more upfront damage level 1 now, so it does 100 instead of 50. And it used to burn for 20 each, so it used to do 90 damage level 1, now it does 100 upfront. So it does 120 damage level 1 now. So it does slightly more damage than it used to. Moderately. Hi. And late game, it does 240 now. In the past, it did... That's like way less. It does 240 now late game, whereas before it did like 330 damage. Now you can still get the level 10 talent that increases the burn damage, or increases the burn duration by 1.5, which would still increase it by like 105 damage. So if you really want, you still can get the Wraithfire Blast talent. But I don't think anybody really does, because you kind of want the attack speed. But, you know, maybe if I go like a Blade Mail Radiance build or something, and I don't worry too much about right-clicking, you could justify it. Or if I go Blink Blade Mail Ags or something, if you go more utility like that, you could justify skipping... hey, don't growl at me. You could justify skipping the other one. So, Vampiric Core is now melee only ability. I saw this one as well. I actually got spoiled on this part when I checked it last night, just to see how long it was. So melee only is probably, it's more than fair basically. It's kind of what it used to always be. It used to always be melee only, but Wraith King's good enough as a hero right now that like that much lifesteal to range heroes is just kind of unfair. Like range heroes already have it real good against melees for the most part, so I think this is more than fine. Strength gain reduced by 0.2, so a little bit less HP overall, which is fine. He's very tanky hero for the most part. And level 25 talent nerfed a little bit, down by 15 damage, so tiny bit weaker in the ultra late game, and just less strength late game. Not much, small nerf. That's probably fine. Zeus got hit pretty hard by the bat, the nerf bat before. It's the level 4 Wraithfire Blast bugged with only 2 ticks instead of 3. I don't believe so. I believe it's always... It should be 2 ticks at all levels. It's the level 4 Wraithfire Blast bugged with only 2 ticks. I don't think it ever does 2 ticks, does it? Because the slow duration is 2 seconds. So it should do 2 ticks. Initial damage, 20, 20. Oh. It does 3 ticks. I did not realize. Why does it do 3 ticks? The fuck? That one only do 2? I swear I saw 3. Is this because of status resistance? No, there's no status resistance anymore. Am I crazy? Did I see 3? I could have swore I saw 3. You saw 3 as well? Okay. It does seem like a bug then, because if we saw 3, that's insane. Alright, let's level up. I wonder why it happened. It's only doing 2. Well, I'd have to check the VOD, I guess. Because I haven't been able to reproduce it here. Okay. And then you can grab this guy. See how many ticks you get with this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it only gives you 2 more ticks. 1, 2, 3. Which makes sense, right? Because if it does 2 burns, if it does 2 ticks in 2 seconds, then if it's 3.5 seconds, it doing 4 ticks is still generous. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you get that talent, it's an extra 140 damage for each Wraithfire Blast, which is not bad. What's the projectile speed on this? I feel like it's... Is that faster than Magic Missile now? I feel like that's faster. Wraithfire Blast is such a cool skill, man. 20 attack speed is good. 1100. It sometimes does 3, but almost always does 2. See, I just got 3. Oh, wait, no, shit. I have the talent. Debated myself. Got too excited. Anyways. Let me check this clip. All levels. It's a level 4 Wraithfire Blast bug. Alright, here's the clip. One, 2. Yeah, there was 3. You're right, there were 3. Huh. Weird. There must be some weird bug that makes it not consistent. Okay. Anyways, let's play a game.